Rise and shine, beautiful people. Welcome to House of Elevation, the podcast. I'm your host, Shanice Talia Williams, also known as The Great Everything. In today's episode, we're going to talk about the removal of our labels and liberating ourselves from our man-made titles. And also, what does that look like for us without labels? How do we pick and choose how we want to be seen in this world? And also, what does it feel like to no longer be leashed to our labels of struggle? So thanks so much for tuning in. Let's get right into it. So let's get right into it. Let's start talking about labels. And first, I'd like to start by defining what labels are. So for me, what labels are, I'm going to refer to the man-made labels, the labels that you self-identify whenever you decide to fill out an application or your FAFSA or anything else where you check off one of those boxes that tells you to self-identify with your label. So you have Black, you have white, you have Pacific Asian Islander. Those are man-made labels. Although we like to look at them as forms of race or forms of ethnicity, by whose definition, by whose terms? Because by definition, let's get into the word Black. So let's start with my labels, the labels that the world attempted to give to me. Obviously, my skin color was the first label that you can recognize, which is Black and or brown, whatever, but the world says Black. And then my biological, which is woman. So I'll start with the two labels that cause me the most harm, Black and woman. So Black by definition is of the very darkest color, owning to the absence of or complete absorption of light, the opposite of white. So the reason that the label Black became problematic for me was because I realized that I was beyond a color. I was beyond just the color of my skin. I was living beyond the struggle that was given to the people who self-identify or label themselves as Black. So I realized that I was already living outside of the checkbox. I was already living outside of the label with my lifestyle. But when I did the ancestry research and I realized how much European ancestry I had and how much European blood and lineage that existed within me, it really made less sense to me why I would self-identify as Black when I'm more than just one checkbox. So I started to begin to check other. And that's when my liberation from label journey truly began. So when we look at the biological term of woman, what does that mean and why did that cause harm? Well, obviously, any label that we choose, because again, we self-identify. That's what each application says. We have the opportunity to refrain from self-identifying. But the key is we are willingly using our free will to choose. And here's the part that definitely will kind of bring it home is our struggle. Our labels are leashes to our communal struggle. Well, once I decided that my individual struggle was enough for me, it was already enough for me to struggle as a creative, because creative was a label that I had chosen for myself, because that is a community whose struggle I identify with myself willingly. I identify with the struggle that comes with being a divine being. I know what that mission consists of and what that struggle and that community consists of, and that is why I choose to self-identify with certain labels, because those are the communities in which I want to be on mission with. Those are the communities whose struggles I identify with willingly. I refrain from willingly accepting the struggles of the Black community because, one, what is a Black community? And two, we've seen these labels and these struggles honestly be used to tie us into a sort of programming of trauma and the programming of desensitizing us to our bodies being harmed in the streets, our respiratory systems being able to be shut down by police officers, and us being able to lack the ability to breathe. And there's all of these things that come with the struggle of being labeled Black or being labeled a part of the Black community. But the key is, again, those are things that we are willingly choosing. We choose which labels we'd like to identify with. So if you no longer want to identify with the struggle that is Black, realize who you are. Define yourself for yourself. Which labels are going to empower you the most in order for you to fulfill your divine mission? Which labels are going to uplift your frequencies in order for you to best move forward, uplifting others? That is the key. When we are all self-identifying in our labels of struggle, we are all consistently trying to fight the same battle. Someone has to step outside of that battle and step into a different light and into a different community and free themselves in order to realize that there was something completely toxic about the labels that were given to us, and that was by purpose and that was with intention. Because if I was to be labeled a white woman, the struggle that comes with being a white woman is less severe than the struggle that comes with being a Black woman, simply because of the first label that comes before the word woman. There's still struggle with being a white woman because the title woman comes with struggle, but less struggle because of the label of white, more struggle because of the label of Black. But when we realize that we are neither Black nor white, because in the human race there are no opposites, only man-made created binaries. We operate off of binaries in the 3D because that's how the third dimension works. It's how the 3D is. It operates, even our technology operates off of binaries. There's always a Black, white, male, woman. Male, female, man, woman, up, down, left, right, good, bad, yes, no, those type of binaries, ones, zeros. So our whole 3D operates off of those binaries. And will we upset the order of the 3D if we no longer operate off of our binaries? That's false. It's a false narrative. Now, will we expand the 3D and expand possibly into, we've already expanded into the ethers and into the 4D, but with this freedom, will we expand ourselves into the 5D? And that will expand us beyond, at this point, the technological era and into an era of self-liberated freedom, beings versus just human beings, because now we are no longer just human. Now we've become superhuman because we've liberated ourselves from our struggle, and with that liberation of struggle, we've increased our frequencies, because the struggle was created by those who feed off of low frequency vibrational beings. And what is the best way to keep people in their low vibrational frequency? To keep them tethered to their struggle. And how do you keep people tethered to their struggle? You label them with that struggle. You brand them with that struggle. That struggle literally became a brand. We are watching the dissolving of the Black Lives Matter movement at a time where there's still police brutality in the streets, but we're watching the dissolving of this movement because the struggle was capitalized. Being Black, dying in the streets, having that struggle became a form of monetary means. It became a stream of income. So that's why it's so crucial for us to take a step back and really and truly take a look at why we call ourselves what we call ourselves. We were given a name for a reason. Why are our names less important, and why are we choosing, again, self-identifying with these labels that are, again, tethered to struggle that is being monetarily a part of the money matrix now? That struggle, even down to the white power movement and the insurrection we saw at the Capitol. Being white, a white man, is now being, that movement is being hijacked and now capitalized with the Make America Great Again movement. And that's exactly what's happening, is they're tethering white man to the struggle of extinction, to the struggle of it's always going back to that mindset and the curse of lack. there's a lacking of, there's an extinction of, there's the removal of. So if they are able to tether that mindset to the label of white man, we saw exactly what happened when white men saw or felt like they were in a form of struggle, when they saw that there was a form of fight that came with now being a white man. So again, the harm that comes from these labels, it actually causes more harm than it does empowerment. So I wanted to bring that conversation to the forefront today and really have a dialogue and a conversation about why we choose the labels we choose. Why is it important for us to choose our own labels? And what can we do in the future moving forward to free ourselves from the struggle that is our labels? So we'll talk about that. Tuning in. Again, this is House of Elevation, the podcast. I'm your host, Shanice Talia Williams, also known as The Great Everything. Today, we are talking about the leashes that we call labels and why I chose to liberate myself from my labels. And I'm encouraging everyone else to name themselves also. So what do I mean by name yourself? I mean self-identifying. It's what we do when we check off those check boxes on those applications and we willingly choose our struggle. So if we all have to choose a struggle, we all have to, because the struggle makes us human. It's what keeps us tethered to our humanity. So by picking a struggle, what I mean is by picking your pile of bricks. Which pile of bricks are you going to sort through to build the foundation of who you are as a being? So my pile of bricks consists of words like creative, artist, motivational speaker. Those are labels, divine being. Even when people say, what are your pronouns? My pronouns are divine being, because that's exactly who I am choosing to be in this world. That was in my pile of bricks. Was woman in my pile of bricks? Someone tried to throw it in there because biologically that's what they saw, but they had no idea what I was capable of. They had no idea who I was truly meant to be and what I was truly meant to become in this dimension. So with that, all they did was throw bricks in my pile that never belonged there. So it's up to us as liberated beings, and the key is liberated. That is a label I've chosen for myself. I am a liberated being, a liberated divine being, because I've chosen to live outside of the system. And the world now is labeling me as other, which is someone who is an outlier to all of the man-made labels. There are no man-made labels outside of the ones that we chose that can fit on that application, because there'd be too many. We'd all be too individual. There'd be no communal struggle. We'd all be focusing on how we can level up. How can we best thrive? There'd be no more communal surviving, but communal thriving. There'd be a thriving in the creative community, because we'd be focusing more on being creatives versus being a Black woman who is a creative. No, I am just a creative. My job is to create in this life. My mission is to create. So if I can focus on how can I thrive as a creative, I can put back the struggle of how can I thrive as a Black woman? You have to actually break that down, because it always comes to how can I thrive as a Black person? How can I thrive now as a woman? Then you have to combine them. Well, if I can thrive as a Black person and I can thrive as a woman, now how can I thrive as a Black woman? And it just becomes a constant cycle of repetitious planning of removing yourself from struggle. There's never an opportunity to thrive as long as you are in the mindset of labeling yourself, because that label, and it's not even the mindset of labeling yourself. It's the labels you are choosing for yourself that is going to either increase or decrease your frequencies. And by that I mean, with the label of creative, it's so much easier for me to find a high vibrational frequency after I am able to conquer something in my struggle as a creative, because there's less focus on creating boundaries and obstacles and struggles for that label. Whereas as a Black person, the obstacles, the struggles, everything that was man-made to be set up against anyone with a label of black, I have to face and confront if I self-identify as black. Every obstacle that was created for a woman, I have to own, accept, confront, and change if I label myself a woman. Those are no longer struggles that I would like to willingly dedicate my time or my energy to, because as we've seen, history continuously repeats itself. And I often refer to Sojourner Truth's Ain't I a Woman speech, which was done in the 1800s, I want to say 1850 possibly. If Sojourner Truth was talking about stepping out of the struggle of being in that speech specifically, a woman, she was referring less to her blackness and more to her womanness. And that was in the 1800s, and that was still the topic of that group who labeled themselves woman. That was still a topic of the conversation. Like, it's been centuries, and there's been no change in those communal struggles because they were designed that way. But we were designed differently. We were designed to be free. And the first thing to free us as beings are to free us from man-made labels that stifle us from being free, from being liberated, from being who and what we choose, what we feel intuitively. That's the thing. They give us options because the options are truly endless when it comes to who and what and how we want to thrive and be in this world. And I keep saying be because as a human being, the key word in that, human is even a label. The thing is being. What are you being today? How are you being today? Why are you being today? When you look at it that way, are you being black? Are you being creative? Are you being woman? Are you being these things? Choose labels that you can embody and you can actually be in a high vibrational frequency space. Can you be free as a black woman? Is that truly a label that will free you from the stresses of your daily struggle? Are those labels that are going to, if you do actions, if you be black woman every day, is there going to be high vibrational moments that you can empower others with and you can carry? Or is there going to be a constant reminder of the struggle that comes with you being? So that's what I mean by choosing labels that will allow you to truly be. Who are you going to be? How are you going to be? And why are you going to be? Those are questions that when you are naming yourself, you should ask, because those are the questions you want to answer when you tell people, when you tell the world, when you tell the universe, when you are putting it out there in pitch and in frequency. When you are saying these things out of your mouth, when you are defining by definition who you are those labels going to allow you to just be? So with that, I want to go ahead and close out today's podcast and just let everyone know that this is a journey we are all on together. We are learning, we are unleashing, and most importantly, we are rising together. Thank you all for tuning into House of Elevation, the podcast, and hashtag Elevate Me. So welcome again to House of Elevation, and you can always find us at houseofelevation.org if you would like to become a member of our organization.